folks filing in. Welcome, everyone jumping in. Looks like we have a lot of folks joining. We'll give everybody about a minute or so to get settled, grab a drink, grab a glass of water, a pint, whatever makes your day, and we'll get things kicked off in about a minute, but we'll let everybody start filing in. Ben, I didn't even get to ask earlier, how's the weather today over there? You guys doing all right?
We had the hottest day of the year yesterday, 16 degrees. And when it's 16 degrees, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, but you just smell barbecue in the air, because as soon as like British people get a whiff of summer, it's shorts and barbecues, and it's not too bad for London.
That's too good. Yeah, we're finally getting a taste of that. You know, we've had so much snow and everything else over the last week or two in the U.S., but we're finally getting a little bit of sun and some warmer weather, so we're excited.
Nice.
Yeah. Awesome. We've got quite a few folks jumping in. We're about a minute in, so Ben, we'll get things kicked off. Just first off, want to welcome everybody who's jumping on the webinar. We are so excited to have our good friends Salesforce Ben McCarthy jumping on with us today. We'll set the stage. You know, we wanted to have this webinar for a couple of reasons. First and most importantly, Ben is the Salesforce expert. I think I kind of joke around, but I look back on my career, getting into Salesforce, learning the ropes, doing some of my certifications, which we'll talk about a lot today. But SalesforceBen.com has been a very big asset for me as I've grown in my career, which I know a lot of folks that are jumping on here, it has been the exact same. It's an asset. Honestly, we carve our own destiny in our careers because of it. So then when you and I were catching up about this, we really wanted to kind of open the floor to a lot of folks that are in the Salesforce ecosystem that have questions. How do we look at this from a strategic perspective, a tactical perspective, just the greater Salesforce piece? But we're going to dive into all of that. A lot of the questions and things that we'll review today come exactly from the folks that are attending this webinar, which we're excited about. But before we get too far into that, let's do some intros. For those of the folks that don't know me, my name is Brad Smith, co-founder and CEO of Sonar Software here in Atlanta, Georgia. We're excited to have Ben on. Outside of Sonar, we also run a community called Wizard of Ops. So for anyone here that's not in the Wizard of Ops community, please reach out to us to join that. It's very operations and Salesforce focused. We'll follow up after this to make sure we get everyone in. But without further ado, Ben, so pumped to have you on. I'll let you give a quick introduction of yourself, everything that you're up to. I know a lot of folks are familiar with you, but we'll let you take it away.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you very much, Brad. And thank you for Team Sonar for having me on. I think these things are so important to do, these, these advice sessions with me or many other people in the ecosystem, just because the ecosystem is so big now. It's just so, from an outsider or a beginner, it can be very, very complex. Although when you get into it, maybe it's not so much with all the resources you've got. But, I think it's great that you guys are putting on these thought leadership sessions. So yeah, thanks a lot for having me on. So hello, everyone. My name is Ben McCarthy. I'm founder of SalesforceBen.com. I've been in the ecosystem since 2012, so coming up to 9 years now. I've worked in kind of most roles. I was a bit of a job hopper at the start of my career. So I worked as an admin. I worked for Conga, the ISV. I founded a Salesforce consultancy about 4 years ago, left there last year to do my own thing. So I'm a co-founder of an ISV called Nimble at the moment. So doing some work on that as well as Salesforce Ben. So yeah, I'm fully immersed in Salesforce.
I love it. Like I said, we've been following you and a lot of folks on the Sonar team. As an expectation setting, when we bring folks on, we're so immersed in the Salesforce ecosystem. All of our employees go through some sort of admin training. A lot of our even sales reps have their admin certification, which I know we're going to talk a heavy bit of about that as far as the certification process and things that we can learn about. But I said it before and I'll say it again. So many folks that I speak with that are inside the walls here that are in our greater ecosystem rely so heavily on SalesforceBen.com and some of the knowledge that you share. So we're excited to bring that to everybody here as well. So we'll kind of do a quick reset just to let everybody know what's sort of on the agenda for today. We did cast a poll out to everybody in our communities, and we did it through Salesforce Ben as well, to talk about what questions do you want to hear us talk about. Ben and I could sit here and banter on Salesforce all day long, but we want to make sure what the questions that you have that are burning that hopefully we can answer and help shed some light on. So the first couple of sections, we took an aggregate of all the questions and we put them in together. But then in the second part of this, we actually have some specific questions from users that are on this call right now or submitted through the form that we're going to answer directly. So we'll jump right in. I think this is one of those great questions to start on when we think about the most in-demand skills for Salesforce admins and sales ops roles. And again, as a level set for the WizOps community, it's very operations focused. So RevOps, sales ops, marketing ops, business ops. But yeah, Ben, we'll start there. Really curious to get your interpretation of some of the most in-demand skills for the Salesforce ecosystem.
Yeah, it's a really interesting question at the moment, I think, because the landscape is changing so much, and there are some kind of specific in-demand skills. I think, like flows is something that is coming up so much nowadays, and if you can master flows, you can pretty much do any type of automation on the platform whatsoever. So that is something very specific. But I think in a kind of more general sense, Salesforce has broadened its product set so much. Started off with Sales Cloud, Service Cloud, then Marketing Cloud. Now you've got CPQ, Field Service Lightning, analytics. The list goes on and on and on. And I think now, for a lot of people on this call who are probably from operations backgrounds and admin backgrounds, specialization is just so key. I don't think you can really stand out from the crowd by just being an admin. But if you're an admin or a sales ops professional that knows, let's say, CPQ, which is an extremely popular product, and I know those from first-hand experience, those type of skills, CPQ skills, are extremely rare still in the market. So things like that, and going into other niches such as Marketing Cloud and things like that are really valuable. So my advice there would kind of be specialization, and standing out from the crowd is you're always going to be in demand if you've got a specialization in Salesforce.
Yeah, you're spot on. It's so funny to me now when you start to see that as job descriptions come out more. You're seeing a sales ops manager with specific a requirement for CPQ or something else. And it's funny to me that not only does that product and the way that gets built, and this was so legacy for me. I was still on, I remember still having my Steelbrick certification before it was Salesforce CPQ. So yeah, I mean, the more you specialize and the more you get those skill sets in place, I think what's really interesting, and we hear this often from the sales ops community so much. When I started in sales ops, I was brought on to do something very strategic. But oh, by the way, this happened to me, by the way. Congratulations, you're also the pseudo admin, or you've now been voluntold to own Salesforce. And it just happens so often that sales ops ends up inheriting it. Kind of by hook or crook, they're going to be the owners of Salesforce. So yeah, the specialization is so key on that.
And I think with sales ops was a world I was kind of brought into. I didn't know anything about it before I started consulting and working with kind of startups who had these sales ops roles. But I think even that in itself is such a specialization. If you know sales processes inside out, how to transform them, and you have Salesforce admin skills, like you're sorted. I think you could get a job anywhere. So yeah, very valuable as well.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think if there's anything to take away from the skill sets that you want to grab and that you want to take in, become specialized, but also just be open to learning new ones. I mean, we see how much of this stuff just evolves day over day, week over week, year over year. You have to be in a constant state of learning. So
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. This next question I love. It's kind of near and dear to our heart on the Sonar side, but we saw this. It was earlier or last week. I'm sorry, with Capado just raising $96 million on a Series B, which you covered on Salesforce Ben. I think objectively speaking, we can all say that there is a rise in the DevOps trend. You mentioned also kind of when prepping for this that we see it as being pushed by the ISVs. Want your interpretation on sort of DevOps for Salesforce. It's a big, kind of a big buzzword, but it's also a big trend that we're seeing. But yeah, would love to get your thoughts on why we're seeing such a demand for that now.
Yeah, it's a world I've been brought into kind of this year, actually. Like I didn't know too much about DevOps, but I worked on a few events, facilitated events with Capado, Code Scan and a few other people, and kind of learned so much about it, and I'm just fascinated by it all now. And I suppose when I said it's being driven by ISVs is people have noticed a huge gap in the market. Like I remember back in maybe 2016, Salesforce got voted by GitHub users, or no, maybe not GitHub, one of the like big forums, that it was the worst platform to develop on. And you know, I think that rung some bells in people's heads, and some light bulbs shone up when people just decided to build applications that just made it much easier to develop on the Salesforce platform. And that's what we're seeing now. You know, deploying things via change sets, you know, that was painful back when I was an admin in 2014. And, you know, I wasn't even doing anything that complicated, but having to go from page to page, finding the right component. And now you've got tools like CPQ, which if anyone's ever deployed CPQ, it is a beast. And you've got metadata you're deploying, but also data. You've got your products and your pricing rules and, you know, all this kind of stuff. And it's almost impossible to do it with change sets. So yeah, we are seeing a big switch now with DevOps becoming a very hot space, but also an in-demand skill and role. I haven't seen that many Salesforce DevOps roles out there yet, but I think we will see them, because, you know, I think every big company is going to have a gear set or a Capado or something like that. And they're going to need people that know these tools, how to run them, how to optimize them. So yeah, it's an exciting time.
Yeah, you're spot on. We talk about it so much here at Sonar because we're so much in that space as well, with creating change and creating change intelligence. And I think one of the unique perspectives when I talk with my co-founder Jack about this, who's been in the engineering and product space his entire life, his mentality of this is like, you know, I watch our engineering team take business requirements. This is all sound familiar for a lot of folks on the call, by the way. We take business requirements and we turn them into solutions with technology. That's not rocket science. That's called software engineering and development, right? We as Salesforce admins and operations professionals, we're doing the same stuff. And when I took this problem to him when we were starting Sonar, he was like, it blows my mind that y'all don't have a way to look at the change impact that's about to happen, forecast for how these things are going to move within each other. You don't have kind of a framework and playbook. He's like, on the engineering team, we go through 2-week sprints. We put things into staging, we test, then we push to production, which we have all the technical mechanisms of that too within Salesforce. But the other parts of that is like, sometimes you don't need a change set to add a new pick list field or pick list value. That would be kind of a heavy lift to do one change set on something small like that. And so how do you make these changes confidently? And I think you're seeing that just rise of DevOps, because there's a best practice there on how to deploy change that we're all embracing. And so I think it's more to come on how all of that circles around itself. But what we're realizing is the complexity of the tech stacks that we're working on, especially driven by Salesforce, are only getting more and more complex every day. And so I think these DevOps tools help people really rationalize how they can make change efficiently. So I love it. Yeah, we got a couple of questions coming in. We're going to get to those in a second. Definitely keep asking questions if you have questions for Ben and I. That's exactly what this session's for. But we'll get one more topic, and then we're actually going to go to some of these questions from the audience. So when you think of sort of the biggest gaps, what would you actually say are the biggest gaps that you see in Salesforce admin and ops experience in working in the Salesforce ecosystem? It's you know, gaps are going to be there no matter what, but you know, when you think about how we solve for these challenges, what are some of the biggest gaps from an admin and ops perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think even DevOps kind of overlaps with that, but I mean, I think you can kind of look at the ISV landscape, you know, such as yourselves, you know, filling a lot of gaps that aren't there on the platform, and also a lot of, I think a lot of apps that are, or sorry, a lot of features that Salesforce haven't developed themselves that the apps are plugging in, like document generation is a big one, and CLM. I know Salesforce kind of have high velocity sales for SDRs and BDRs, but obviously there's companies out there like Outreach that I'm sure a lot of people know on this call that are doing really great things. So yeah, I think there are a few, but I mean, maybe you can speak, Brad, to how Sonar is kind of filling those gaps as well, because you know, there are a lot of them. Salesforce isn't perfect.
Oh yeah, absolutely it is. I think, you know, I kind of look holistically at this, and we'll talk about why and how Sonar does, but it's interesting that I think there are gaps. When we look at Salesforce to begin with, this was built for sales reps to manage their expectations with their pipeline and their, you know, customer relationship management, plain and simple. It wasn't exactly built for sales ops. You didn't build this platform for an admin in mind. You built this platform for your go-to-market team in mind, essentially. And so I think part of the ecosystem right now is catching up to that, which is why you're seeing this wave of DevOps related tools to empower these admins and operations folks to use it. It's funny to me. I look at this also as an evolution of the role itself, and we'll stay on sales ops for a second. You kind of rewind the clock 5 or even 10 years ago. You might have had one sales ops person, or just call it ops person, business ops person in a company. Maybe two if you're lucky, even regardless of the size. And now you see it today, just massive teams of RevOps teams and sales ops teams and Salesforce teams. What I'm most excited about is to see what that looks like in the next 5 to 10 years, because technology is only going to get more and more complex. We're only going to need more and more Salesforce admins and RevOps and sales ops professionals to keep the lights on, the wheels spinning fast. So I think there's gaps that we don't even know about yet, is a kind of a short answer to that. And I think it's going to be really cool watching that evolve. But on the Sonar side, that's what we're building. We're building you this brand new framework and this brand new blueprint for you to understand how all these complexities are working together, all at a metadata level. So exciting times for us as well. It's been great. Speaking of exciting times, this will be the last question, then we'll jump in, like I said, to the Q&A part. Big news, obviously surfacing, earlier this year on the Slack and Salesforce acquisition. We all kind of have particular opinions of it. I love the kind of sweet spot that we're in right now. I'm such a Salesforce homer. We all know that. Like I love everything we're doing. Also, strategically, one of our investors at Sonar is Slack. And so we have a unique perspective of asking them, their interpretation of this acquisition. But before we go there, I'd love to get your thoughts on why this is important, why now is the right time for Salesforce and Slack to get together.
Yeah, it's been such an interesting topic throughout the last few months since they acquired them. And then I think I think Mark Benioff had this vision with chatter and social collaboration at work and things like that. And I think that worked to an extent. But I think the majority of companies that I was implementing Salesforce working with didn't have a good Slack strategy. Like, I think you can use Slack in a really effective way, but you really need someone that knows what they're doing to implement it. Like, I remember working with like Slack implementation teams, like those do exist out there that come in and like implement Slack for you. But I think it was very challenging, like to implement implement chatter properly. But you've got something like Slack, which is just so intuitive. Everyone uses it straight away. You don't need any training on it. And it's just a fantastic matchup for Salesforce. In terms of like was it a good investment? I think we're really going to see of how they implement it. Will they replace chatter? Will they leave chatter and just integrate it? You've also got Salesforce Anywhere for people that haven't seen that yet, which is really exciting. So Salesforce Anywhere is kind of like an umbrella term which encapsulates Quip, but also video and live messaging on records themselves. So like on Opportunity, you can talk to people directly on the Opportunity, kind of like chatter, but more instant messaging, I think, and also video chat. We've got our hands on some beta licenses, so we should do a post about that soon. But it's exciting times. I'm really looking forward to see what they pull out the bag with this. I mean, they seem very confident that they can work something out with these tools. So yeah, it's going to be exciting.
It's always fun. I think we all get excited about a lot of the Salesforce acquisitions, right? I mean, I know I always do. I follow them closely. I think it's always that, all pun intended, billion-dollar question: how do we incorporate it? How do we get these things to synergize now? And I think ultimately, even if we zoom out, we realize these are both market leaders in their respective space. There's no doubt in our minds that something really cool is going to come out of it. I think we're all excited to see, all right, let's roll up our sleeves and see how we start to incorporate how these two systems and tools start to work together. Because truthfully, over the last 5+ years, almost 10 years, every company I've been with, we have Slack and we have Salesforce. And there's so many conversations and collaboration that goes in. Hey, what's going on with this deal? Why are we doing it this way? Have you talked to this buyer? Have you talked to this person? So how we start to mesh all that together is going to be, I think, really fun, really cool. I know talking with both parties, especially the folks over at Slack that we work with so closely, they are ecstatic about how this is going to go and what they have on the roadmap together. So exciting times. So we almost got that in sort of our 15-minute bucket, Ben. That was a good time on our side.
Nice.
we're gonna switch over to some of the survey questions now. And I know we got a couple of them coming in on Q&A. We're gonna get to those as well as they kind of fit in these categories. But to let everybody know, we got a lot of responses. So first off, thank you everybody for sending in your questions. Obviously we kind of put them into categories so we can help answer a lot of them. A few of them were pretty, I won't say like redundant, but in the sense of, asking a lot of the same topics and the same questions. So we're going to talk about skills and certifications in category 1. We're going to talk about Salesforce implementation and internal communications. I think the project management side of things a little bit. And then, we're really excited to see a lot of questions come through about metrics. I'm a data junkie, a data nerd. I love it. I live in operations all day. So I love seeing metric-driven questions. But we'll start at the top, skills and certifications. Like I mentioned at the very beginning of this, Ben, I used Salesforce Ben for a lot of practice exams when we were going through all of the certifications that we've all gotten. But a really cool question here, and this is from Elisa Goldschmidt, who's a big Wizard of Ops contributor. She's one of our top wizards. She was Wizard of the Month a couple of months ago. I earned my admin certification in March, but then was laid off over the summer. Just started a new RevOps role and need to get back up to speed quickly. Any recommendations? I'm gonna fire that one over to you first, and I'll kind of give some insights as well on that.
Yeah, well, congrats on landing a new role so quickly. So I think look, there's so much stuff out there, and it's a good question because it's so overwhelming. Like, there's so much more out there than when I started. Trailhead wasn't available and things like that, but it is very overwhelming. But there is so much going on at the moment to just immerse yourself in the world of Salesforce. If you head over to Salesforce Ben, and at the top there's an events tab, and you look down there, we try and keep up to date with all the events going on, but all the user groups, pretty much all user groups that I know of, are now virtual. So, user groups from all over the world are going virtual. So it means you can pretty much, pick which one you want to go to, which topic interests you, and attend it. Before, they wouldn't be, as far as I'm aware, I don't think many of them were live streamed or anything like that. So that is a really great way to kind of, pick a topic that you like and join via that way. I mean, obviously there's Trailhead. Trailhead is always going to be good. The amount of kind of softer badges and modules that are coming up are really nice as well. Diving into business analysis and things like that, but in a Salesforce context, are pretty cool as well. So yeah, those are a few things, but we always try and blog about the latest and greatest Salesforce stuff as well. So yeah, subscribe.
I love that. Yeah, it goes without saying, if you're not already in Salesforce Ben subscribed, you absolutely should. I think when I saw that question come in, I almost got a little overwhelmed with it, because you get into a new RevOps role. How do I get back up to speed quickly? I'm always kind of a big fan of make it contextual to what you're actually learning and doing. So obviously, Lisa, congrats again. You're on your new role. What's the biggest problem that the company has right now? Is it something like records management? Things are flying around everywhere. Like, there's absolutely modules in Trailhead for that. And shout out to our friends at Salesforce, Jen Whalen, the senior director of Trailblazer community. She's a good friend of ours. She sponsors a lot of our shops talks from the WizOps standpoint. But I would make it personal. Like, make it something that if you're going to go learn something, find out what the business need is first. If you're not necessarily worried about a ticketing system or looking at issues coming in, don't focus on Service Cloud in the first couple of weeks. I'd probably focus on something that's more burning desire for the business, that you're going to get not only an outcome for you, but an outcome for the business as well. So great question. I'm going to move on. Mina sent this one in. How do you plan for any exam? What's your strategy? How do you prepare to take it? Ben, you and I are catching up. I'll start this one. I'll pass it over to you. We were catching up earlier. We were like, God, when was the last time we took an actual new certification? It's been years for me. So I have to kind of dust that one off a little bit. But there's a lot that gets covered in these exams, whether it be admin or advanced admin or sales cloud or service cloud. There's so many more now that have just evolved over the last 5 years or so. But, I look at test prep and studying. A lot of it's repetition. Ben obviously has a ton of practice tests for a lot of different, different modules and things like that. But the more at-bats you get with the questions, and the more you can, again, kind of back to Elisa's thing, make it very contextual, learn, not just memorize. But there's a lot of times too, when you're taking these exams, whether they're proctored, obviously via webcam right now, you can still have, to my knowledge, still have a piece of paper. You can write your things down. You can still prep very well. So I just say, take it sort of in stride, but make it contextual for yourself so that you actually learn something, not just memorize answers. But really make sure that you focus in on why you're getting the certification, why you're learning for it, and what is going to be the business outcome for you too. But Ben, yeah, any advice? I know you've had that question come up quite a few times.
Yeah, I had quite a methodical way of revising for them. I probably went a bit over the top, but at least it meant that I failed kind of a minority of the time. But I used to print out stuff. I used to get the study guide and essentially work through the study guide. There's 10 modules and you've got 5 points per module, so it's like 50 things, and essentially make extensive notes on each of those things in my own, whether it was writing them down or typing them up in the Word doc, because that kind of when you're typing out yourself or writing it down, that's obviously helping with you learning instead of just reading something off the screen, and basically go through all of those points one by one just to make sure you know everything about it. It just means that you've covered all of it. But to what Brad said, I think there is a lot of memorization, which is a bit annoying, but there is a lot that, let's say you haven't memorized a certain thing, if you've learnt the actual feature, then you can work it out yourself. If it's between relationships between, I don't know, master detail and lookup objects, or there's a few questions about advanced admin coming up, but there's the advanced admin had a lot between products and price books and all those things, which are very complicated, but if you know the ins and outs of how they work, then you're sorted, even if a question comes up that you're not familiar with at all. So yeah.
Absolutely, you're spot on. I think so. We're getting a couple of questions in, right now. So we'll kind of switch over to Q&A just real quick. We did have somebody, anonymous attendee. There's so many certifications now, since we're still kind of on the certification train. What guidance would you give to someone who has their admin cert and then is starting to go to that very next one? We all know admin cert is you have to have it first. It's a prereq for all the others, but there's a lot of different ways that you can go. Any advice on which direction to go after getting just the admin cert?
Yeah, I mean, the kind of logical way is to go towards the certifications that are going to help with your career. So if you are focusing on sales ops, then maybe the CPQ one would be quite nice, or advanced admin platform app builder is always really good. But if you're perhaps looking to take the architect trail, then you've got all the architect ones there as well. But it's also, let's say your company is using a tool like CPQ, that is a great cert to get, even if you're already using CPQ, because it forces you to learn areas that you might not come across just in your day-to-day job. Or if you've got a Salesforce org and you want to learn development, get the developer one exam, because it forces you to learn about it, and you can practice a bit in your Salesforce org while you're getting it, maybe not in production. But yeah, it is overwhelming. We've got an infographic. If you type into Google Salesforce certification pathways, we created this infographic to kind of outline all the paths, and it's just a mess. So it is tough, but yeah, hopefully you can kind of focus where you want to go in your career.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of ways to go. And again, I'm starting to get repetitive, but make it contextual. If your company has a specific place that you're trying to go, focus on that one next. You don't necessarily have to go just get one to get one. Do it and make it meaningful for your company too. A lot of companies will reimburse for that. And so, take advantage of programs like that. We want to be able to give back to our community. We do this often. So for those that are working on getting another certification, if you want to right now, you can put your name. You can send a direct message over to the panelists. We'll pick one randomly, and we'll sponsor your next certification. We're always in the mood for, or always just big advocates of continued education. We want to continue to give back. So definitely shoot us your name, and we'll follow up with you, and we'll work on getting you sponsored for your next certification. So, kind of moving into the next set of topics, we talked about obviously the certification side, which we can go very, very far into, but part of Salesforce implementation and just internal communications as well is sort of the next topic. I know you're a master of this, so I'm going to let you lead this one off. But people ask this all the time in WizOps and on forums, on Salesforce Ben. How do I know when I should move my current process builder to a flow? I'll let you kick us off on it, Ben.
Yeah, like for me personally, I've stopped being technical in Salesforce maybe 3 or 4 years ago now, but flows always scared me. Like I stayed away from them just because I was never taught them. But now the landscape is very different, and process builder is a lot easier to use, but flow is a lot more powerful. And some people might have noticed now that Salesforce aren't updating process builder anymore. I don't think at all. Maybe some bug fixes or things like that. But flow, there is a huge amount of features coming out every single release, massive features to make, and it's kind of making it as Apex code-like as possible. And Salesforce is doing this. They haven't said, I don't think they've said they're retiring process builder, but I would imagine the day would probably come, because flow is just so much more powerful. So I would recommend to get your head around flow as soon as possible, because some of the best admins and consultants I know are masters at flow. And I think it is a little bit overwhelming at first, just because it's you do things in more of a code-like way with creating integers and things like that, and using variables. But once you get your head around it, it's the same as anything else. So I would recommend to learn it as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we all know just the power difference between what you can accomplish with a flow versus what you can accomplish with a process builder. I'm like you. I'm not going to say I've totally removed myself from the hands-on of building and doing everything on a daily basis. I'm still very much our Salesforce admin here. Fortunately, we've got a couple other folks that are getting their admin cert, so we challenge our internal team to build things. We have our sales engineer Mitchell who does all of our build, but him and I were talking about this the other day, and it's so much more advantageous for you in your Salesforce career to take the time to learn it the right way. You very much want to, you're always going to be learning a new skill set, but if you can do yourself a favor and learn how to do flows the right way, you're going to just help you and your company so much better. I'm with you. I don't think they've said they're deprecating process builders, but there's always whispers and things like that come around. So you're always going to be, and Salesforce is always going to be looking to take the very next best thing and make it better. So just jump on the bandwagon, jump on the train, and start to learn how flows work very well. So this was a fun one, and it's a little bit on the implementation. I know we have a ton of implementation and consultant folks on. This actually came from our friend Catherine Castle over at Candybox CRM. What are the best ways to begin forging direct relationships with Salesforce, i.e. AEs, especially those that are feasible, while we're all remote? Building relationships is hard. It's even harder via Zoom. I wish I had a silver bullet for that. I would so much rather be in the same room than someone or with someone than obviously just a screen away. But it is interesting. We know that from the consulting world, so much of a consultant's pipeline can come from Salesforce AEs. You have your two channels. You have your direct. You can go find a logo and hopefully you can get in. But it's so much easier to hear from Salesforce and their account executives which customers need additional help on the consulting side. Those relationships are key. How Ben, you've been in this world for a while. What's the best way you think to build some of those relationships and that trust, which is key for this, with some of these some of the AEs and folks at Salesforce?
Yeah, I think I've got quite a lot of experience in this, because in my last role, when I co-founded a consultancy, I joined as a consultant, but I didn't consult at all. I was just thrown into sales unexpectedly for 4 years, which was very fun, learned a lot. And yeah, the thing is with Salesforce AEs is, they are salespeople. Their job is to sell. They are on commission. So if a partner is just kind of asking for leads and not providing any value, then they're probably not gonna engage with them that much. I got a friend of mine who was kind of a lower, more junior level salesperson that was actually kind of KPI'd on just calling up Salesforce AEs. Don't do that. Like, they do not enjoy that. So I think my number one bit of advice would be just add value in any way you can. If it's maybe finding out, if you're working with some Salesforce customers, find out who the AE is, call them up, let's talk about the account, give them some insight into the account, maybe what products they'd like to focus on next, or potentially helping them with pre-sales. Salesforce solution engineers are always a very rare resource inside of Salesforce. They're not always available to jump on calls. So because I was technical going to a sales role, I could help them out. I could jump on calls, answer questions, do a demo. So in summary, just add value in any way you can. And then, I think they'll give you some leads.
Yeah, you're spot on. We say this often in our WizOps community. And I'm kind of like pounding my hands on the desk, like, bring value.
Mm.
Nobody wants to start a cold conversation. Hey, do you want to put some dollars in my pocket? Like that's just not how sales works. Bring value, be constructive. The more value you show, the more people are going to rely on you for that next answer. And it's a give take. You have to give before you take anything. So yeah, it's a great question. Again, we talk about it so much. The Salesforce ecosystem is so vibrant with events, and we all love Dreamforce. Ben, the first time I got to meet you in person was at Dreamforce years ago, and it's tough. We don't get to do that now. In person, we don't get to go to all the happy hours and events and Salesforce Saturdays and things like that. But build that relationship based off of value is the biggest thing you can do. Bring value every day, and you're going to do a lot of the right stuff. We're going to quickly move into just this third category, just so we get to it. I know we got about 10 minutes or so that we have scheduled, and we'll keep as many questions coming from the Q&A section as we can. But we're going to focus on metrics. Again, near and dear to my heart, because just from an operation perspective, I think everyone that's joining this call is very metrics minded or focused. But this first question comes from Colleen. What is the best way to track month over month metrics? Example here, a customer signs up for 100 users, and we want to be able to track how many users are each month. Is there a good way to do this in Salesforce? Ben, I'll let you start, and I'll kind of piggyback with you afterwards.
Yeah, I think I've seen this been done well in Salesforce. For example, when I worked for an ISV, they've got all the licenses in there already, so it was pretty easy to report on that kind of information. I think it really depends where your data is sitting. If it's already inside of Salesforce and it's useful to access, then it's probably going to be a very good way to report on it. Obviously, you've got was it not Einstein Analytics, Tableau CRM now as well, which can provide that kind of extra power in terms of reporting if reports and dashboards isn't enough. But I don't think you want to go out of your way to kind of force the data in Salesforce just so you can use Salesforce reports and dashboards. So yeah, but I'll let Brad take over because I know he's got a good insight into this.
Yeah, I mean, this is so much of operations, right? Like, how do we know we have a business case, we know we need to track a metric. How do we track it most efficiently? I'm not going to take the total scapegoat of it depends on the situation. That's too easy of one. But even in month over month stuff, if you're gonna try to be very tactical about it, you can do field history tracking. We know that, and you can start to see before and after changes. I think what you're going to see, and we're already seeing this in the Salesforce ecosystem, some of these trending analysis, and again, depending on the level of scope of what you're trying to truly leverage, you have great outside systems too that integrate with this that help you see trending data. Sales rep performance is such a big thing that sales ops and rev ops folks always have to focus on. So you see great systems like Atrium and Insight Squared and Clary that help you understand more over time periods, and they are very flexible when they're changing time periods. But one thing that I have to be kind of aware of, just to throw it out there, I see so many people do this often. Let me just go create a custom field. Oh no, even better. Let me go create a custom object and then a custom field. And I'm going to start piggybacking some of this stuff to timestamp day over day, week over week. If you're doing it with process builders, you're probably going to hit some API limits later on in life, or you're going to max out how many times you can refresh things. No silver bullet here to the answer, but I would say is learn the business case first. Solve the business case as much as you can within Salesforce. There's so many different and unique ways to do the reporting side. Obviously, the Tableau analytics piece of it. If you need to rely on outside, applications as well that do time tracking and things like that, you can start to flex those too. But I encourage everyone, dig in on what you're trying to solve for first. What does the pie in the sky or what's the goalpost look like, and go to that. Don't just resort to, oh, I saw an ad that somebody says I can track pipeline month over month, I should just use this software. Use the software if it makes sense for you, but too often we fall into traps of trying to throw software at a problem. So always my 2 cents. This last question, and then we'll get to some of the Q&A side too. This came from Ricky. Yeah, I've had a dual role over the past 16 years, managing Salesforce and sales operations teams. Seeking a new role and wondering, is it best to search for one or the other roles? I would think that having both experience and background would be attractive to companies. What are your thoughts? I'll let you start, Ben. This is also a wild topic that we talk about in WizOps all the time, but I'll let you start, and I'll kind of bring it home.
Yeah. I think both role, sales. I mean, I guess if you're talking Salesforce, you're kind of talking head of CRM or something like that. And sales ops is obviously slightly different. But I would say have a look for both of them. And I mean, they're pretty different roles. You know, sales ops is obviously going to be more focused on the process side and working with the sales team, and the Salesforce side is probably going to be a bit more technical. You know, you're overseeing releases and things like that. So I think they are very different roles. I think it's fantastic that you've got experience in both sets. You know, it opens up the options for you. I think the more interesting space at the moment is actually, I don't know. I don't have an answer for you there. I think it really depends. It really depends on your own you know, what you want out of the role. So yeah, but yeah, sounds like you're in a very good place for your job search.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's the first thing I was going to say was 16 years of experience managing Salesforce and sales ops.
Mm.
I will leave your last name, vague for everyone, but they're going to find you pretty quick if they start to see that you have that kind of experience. Where I would focus is, again, it's going to be what problem are you going to go solve for the business that you're trying to solve it for. I think the coolest thing with owning Salesforce and managing Salesforce, and we push our team to this all the time, the more you know about how it works, the ins and outs, is only going to make you better at whatever job you're doing. And if that's sales ops, so if you have a foundation of being just Salesforce knowledgeable and knowing how different reference tables work and lookups work and the reporting capabilities behind it, you can go off into sales leadership, you can go off into sales ops, you can go off into consulting, but that foundation is so important for everyone. And I think, again, depending on which way you truly want to go, if it's more Salesforce driven or if it's more sales ops driven, that's a personal question that you get to answer, but I think you can really shine on both of them. For example, if you're applying for that Salesforce ownership role in a company, the biggest question they're going to have for you is, oh, cool, how do you work with sales ops? How do you work with the rest of the business to take those requirements and implement them? Great. Well, it's funny you say that. I've got a great sales ops background as well. Vice versa, the same way, if you're applying for a sales ops job, and you're like, man, our Salesforce is dirty. It's a mess. We got to clean it up. Like, congratulations. I've been doing that for 16 years. I'm a Salesforce pro. So I think it's just a lot of it's in storytelling and how you want to go and really exemplify your biggest skill set and asset. So I know we got about 4 more minutes, maybe 3. I'm going to toss a couple of these questions out that are coming in on the Q&A. Tim, this is a great one. Is the admin role becoming extinct or transforming into a DevOps role? I'll start with saying I definitely don't think it's becoming extinct. I do think you are getting much more responsibility than just Salesforce admin. You have so many more. The pseudo admin, or the admin in general at most companies, is so knowledgeable about how everything works. That's why they get pulled into, hey, go run this number for a board meeting. I got to go talk to investors or anything like that. So I don't think it's becoming extinct. I definitely think it's transforming onto the DevOps role side of it. Ben, you were talking about that earlier, but curious to get your thoughts on even how it's evolving or going extinct perhaps.
Yeah, I think the admin role has always worn so many different hats, and I think actually, if you take an admin, their main responsibility is kind of user management, security, and then you go down, turning business processes onto Salesforce and stuff like that. But then you kind of go down a sales ops role, or service ops, or I don't think it's going to turn into DevOps. I think DevOps is going to be a kind of role on its own, like a Salesforce DevOps specialist or something like that, to manage the deployments, ensure the deployments done effectively, get down the bugs that are coming out in each release. So I definitely don't think the admin role is going away, but I think it's the admin's kind of the admin that was around 5 years ago is going to split off into so many different roles now, such as a sales ops professional. So very good question though. Very interesting topic.
Oh yeah, you're spot on. I think the evolution, like we said, we saw it 5 years ago evolve from a 1-person show to now a team show. I think it's going to evolve from a team to an entire department. I don't know. We don't know what the next problems are around the corner, but it's fascinating. I think if anything, it further validates how important Salesforce is becoming to absolutely every entity out there. You and I both talk to customers all day, every day about why it's so important to them, why Salesforce is the absolute epicenter for their company. It doesn't take long for you to figure out, I can't answer A, B, and C questions for my business without turning to Salesforce and our greater tech stack to answer those questions for the business. So I know we're at the top of time. We have a couple other questions. What we'll be able to do is we'll try to follow up with that via email, or start to share some more information on some of these other questions. But Ben, this was fantastic. I hope, I know I enjoyed it. I hope everybody on the call has enjoyed it. I think, if anything, we're seeing further and further validation just that Salesforce is growing and that we're just excited to be along for the ride. But Ben, absolutely. I don't know if you have any parting words or not, but we appreciate you jumping on with us and making the time.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Brad, Team Sonar, and everyone that's joined. The questions were really, really interesting. So thank you for everyone that submitted them. It's been a real pleasure to join this call with you guys. So yeah, hopefully we can do it again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.